Many of us have had the opportunity to hear him speak before, but not only was he a great baseball pitcher, but he is a great man and a great Christian man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Bolin.
All right. Thank you. It's good to be here. I tell you, it's great to see what is still taking place.
Closer. All right. Swallow.
But I'm really impressed. I was impressed when I walked in with the orchestra and the band playing. I tell you right now, did everybody give them a hand like we should have? They said they only practiced, what, a few weeks, had time to get together, and still all of them show up here today to play, and just to play for us. But I look around the room, and they say when you get to a certain age, you forget a couple things. One is memory, and I can't remember what the other is. But it's good that everybody remembered to come today. Anyway, but this is a great tribute to the past, and if we can keep remembering the things that we grew up with and the principles we grew up on, and I think that's a great tribute to the people in this room, and I hope it keeps going. And, but I grew up as a kid over in, I was born at a real early age in Hickory Grove, South Carolina. Most of you never heard of that. Smyrna. And over in York County, below Blacksburg. In fact, that's where I got to play with a mill team there in Black when I was 14, 15, 16, and 17. They had me playing the outfield when I was younger than when I got a strong right arm. But my mill league experience was quite short. They come and got me out of the woods one day at Cherokee Falls down below Blacksburg. They were playing a team in North Carolina. And so they come down to get me to pitch because I was a young 17-year-old, wild right-hander. You would not believe how wild I was. People say, how hard did you throw? Don't know. Nobody had a radar gun back in those days. But I threw hard enough to break ribs, break arms, and different things, even ankles, because it wasn't I didn't know. The only thing I tried to do was get 3 pitches over before I threw 3 balls. But growing up, baseball was my whole life, basically. Other than going to church on Sunday, we farmed and I played baseball all the other time. They come and got me I was cutting pupwood down in the woods with my uncle. And so the mill team all around below Blacksburg, the overseer of the mill and a couple of guys come and got me and brought me over. So we was going up in North Carolina to play a mill who had sneaked in a bunch of Western Carolina pro players. Well, they figured I threw hard enough, maybe I could get them away from the plate. And the greatest thing about mill league play, we started after the mill closed at 4 o'clock. And so at 4 o'clock, the sun's kind of setting now. This is September, late September. And so when I went out on that field, a young wild right-hander that maybe would strike out in 9 innings, strike out 20, walk 15. And so, and mix a few hits in there. And so those guys wanted to go home with their wives, and there ain't no way they would stay in there because I hit a few, knocked a few down, end up winning the ball game, shut them out, 2-0. They still got a plaque over in the mill about this tall, but that's my most embarrassing time ever in my life. Because when I struck out that last guy, the 2 ladies that were wives of the thing had kindly celebrated the whole game. And they were really they come out and put me on their shoulder and carried me off the field, and I never felt so embarrassed in my whole life. And I'll never forget that day as long as I live. And then, ironically, that day there was a scout. Now back in today, they put players in the computer and they draft them and who gets this and who. Back then it was scouts, bird dog scouts. It was everybody. Back in the 50s, you went around and you seen who played and you turned it into the scout. Then you went and see, and everybody would run through the mill. Well, there was a giant bird dog scout in the stands that day. He was the principal of that school. And so he called Tim Murchison, who was the head scout of the Giants, and Tim Murchison come down to the house about a week later. I was plowing a mule because I grew up on a farm. I don't know what I was plowing in September. I can't understand what I was doing, but it's way up in the backfield, and no car had ever been in that area. And I look up, and there was a '56 Buick Roadmaster sitting out at the end of the road. My old mule was kind of spooky. Old Joe was kind of a horse spook. And when he turned around and saw that car, he took off. And the only thing saved me in that plow was I wrapped it around a tree and hung on. And I got him back out in the field, went on down there where old Tim was, and he was kind of crippled, and he was climbing up on the bank, and he stood there and he said, "Hi, you're Bob Bolin. I come up to your house and your mom said you was down here." And I said, "How'd you get that car in here?" He had scratches all over it because it was just a one-leg little wagon road that he come down. And I told him later on, I still believe if I'd have showed him how I threw the ball instead of how I plowed that mule, I'd have got more money when I signed. And so that's how I ended up starting. I hated the Giants with a passion. I loved the Dodgers at that time. But old Tim, he was quite a good old guy. He ended up signing me. He signed Gaylord Perry. He signed Dick Dietz. He signed Randy Hunt. He signed all those guys that went on to all of us went on to the big leagues. And I played, when I started in a low D-ball, just about as low as you can start. And then D-ball next year, I went to C-ball. And never made a C in school, as all. But then next year I went to A. Then double A and triple A, then I went on to the big leagues. I had 4 years in the minor leagues playing in Canada and Mexico and all over the United States. Even I played outside the United States 1 year in Texas. And so but I had an unbelievable people say, "Where'd you go to school at?" I said, "Minor leagues." And that was quite a school. Travel all night and all get off, put your uniform on and play without any rain. And minor leagues was tough in those days. The ballparks had no air conditioning. I mean, you get through playing ball, there wasn't no use to take a shower because you just get wet again. And so you just went on home with your uniform, back to the hotel and changed. That's where we changed most of the time. So I can understand a lot of guys coming along in the 60s and 70s wouldn't go through the process of the minor leagues. And I talked to a lot of our old mill players over home when I was a youngster and after I got back from playing ball. And they could make a lot more playing ball for the mill than they could going and playing for a pro team. Because a pro team would give you $150, $200 a month. In the mill league, if you were a pretty good player, you could make a lot more than that playing for the mill team. And so I remember my brother, he played with 1 year with the Baltimore, and he only made $300 a month. This is up in about 1960. Or 59 to 60. And so then a lot of guys wouldn't go through the effort because it took a lot of work, took a lot of determination to stay in there, travel all night, sleep in rag hotels because the owners would be sleeping in station wagon most of the time. Then you get out and play it all. It sounds like a wonderful life. Now when you get to the big leagues, it is. That's where you talk about dreaming and the vision and the goals and thinking. The only thing kept you going through there is you'd get a little bulletin about the big leagues and how the big leagues was. And when you get to the big leagues, it is. Man, they carry your luggage. They do everything. But in the minor leagues, you don't have no luggage. So if you don't know on a week trip, you don't need to change clothes. And so the only thing you get mad at is you guys sitting beside you in the van. And so, but the key thing, I think, as I look back over a career I got to play 17 years, 13 in the big leagues. I got to play 9 years with the Giants, and then a year with Milwaukee Brewers, and I played 3 years with the Boston Red Sox. And so my years with the Giants was back during, the Mays. Well, my team, I had 5 Hall of Famers on our team. Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Juan Marichal, Gaylord Perry, and Orlando Cepeda. And you think we'd have won all the time, but there was 2 guys down in L.A. that kept us from there a lot of times, Sandy Koufax and Ron Drysdale, and Mario Wills and all those guys. And so we had an unbelievable run during the 60s. And so I got to play against and with an unbelievable amount of superstars. And over in, like Mickey Mantle, I think, Mickey Mantle was an unbelievable superstar. And first time I ever faced Mickey, I threw 2 fastballs right by him. And then on about the 8th pitch, after he kept fouling them off, he took out 2 vendors and almost killed a hot dog guy in right center field seats. That was in an exhibition game in New York. Then I faced him in the World Series in 1962. Then I got smart. I walked him. The only time ever I faced him again. And a lot of the old guys, I remember we had a couple old guys pass away, Stan Musial. And you remember Stan Musial, everybody thought Stan Musial would never be able to play because he had unorthodox hitting stance and everything, but I'll guarantee you get hit. I can prove it. Alvin Dart. Most of you here are Alvin Dart. Know Alvin Dart or heard of Alvin Dart. Lives up on the first green at Smithfield. I live off the 5th tee box. We go to Rock Springs, sit together every Sunday and Wednesday. And when you go there, you're going to find Alvin. He's there. And so, but now I forgot what I was talking about, Alvin. But anyway, when I think about Alvin, I mentioned Alvin. Alvin wanted a strong right-handed pitcher. When I come to spring training in 1961, I had no idea I'd make the big leagues. I was set on going to AAA again. And all of a sudden, I started looking around at the guys playing, and I said, golly, I can throw harder than they can. I just got to find a plate to put it over somewhere. And it's the only thing I had to do. And so one day, Alvin brought me in right toward the end of spring training. Bases loaded, nobody out, bottom of the 9th. And I struck out the side. And so I made the team from then on. Through 9 pitches. And just one day I had everything in order. Now next day I might throw 9 pitches and I wonder where they went. And so it took me years to get control of throwing that little baseball. It takes a lot of work. Kind of like life. It takes a lot of work to get along with people. To get along and smile at people when they criticize you and frown at you and do everything. I always tell a story about I get a kick out of people getting mad because somebody said something to them, or they let other people change. Other people control how they feel by the language that the other people use. And so it don't matter what other people say. We have the control over how to react, because every action determines a reaction, so we got to learn how to react in a good way when somebody is in a bad way. A lot of the old timers can remember Bob Gibson, pitched for the St. Louis Cardinals. Then our guy was named Juan Marichal with the Giants. Now Juan could win 25 games for us. Gibson would win 25 games for the Cardinals, and it was unbelievable. Gibson was I tell you right now, when he walked on that mound, you better not flinch or do anything, swing too hard or anything, or he'd knock you flat down. I mean, he broke a lot of our guys' shoulders and arms because they swung too hard at it. Today, it's like, well, I'm sorry, where you want me to throw the ball? But back in the old days, it was just, if you swing too hard, by golly, you better be standing on your loose toes next pitch, because you have to go down. That's just the way the game was played. And so, but when I think about the times of the old timers, let me go over Stan Musial again. Alvin Dart one day brought me in to pitch to Stan Musial. This is my first year up. I threw so hard, Alvin told me that Stan couldn't hit my fastball. And so it was whiz leading by 1 run, 9th inning. He brought me in to pitch in St. Louis. He said, just crowd the old man inside. He can't hit your fastball. Just throw it right in there. And so, well, I threw it right in there. He had a grand slam on the roof. 1 pitch, grand slam. And Alvin was so determined that my fastball was so fast that Stan couldn't get around. He was old. He was turning 39 at that time, I think. And so the next day, when the game was out of hand, Alvin brought me in again to face Musial, just out of, I don't know what it was out of, but he just going to prove to me. And he said, all right, throw this old man inside. And the bases were loaded again. And so I threw it inside. The only thing kept it in the park was because it was only about 8 feet high down the right field line. I held him to a double anyway, so instead of a home run. So I know that the old man was going. When I saw him where he passed away a few weeks ago, wasn't it? I think Earl Weaver. I think Earl Weaver was another guy. Earl hated me with a passion, and I didn't like Earl too well either. He stood on the front steps, and he would call me every 4-letter word that you could ever call anybody, and just yell it. Everybody could hear, and I would be embarrassed for him using that foul language. But it was all pointed toward me because I was knocking all the guys down. Because all of Baltimore stood right on top of the plate. And I would throw it right here, flatten everybody to come up, and they'd run to the foul line. Nobody ever come to the mound back in those days, very seldom. They didn't charge the mound or anything. Now, I wrote a bunch of notes down, and I better get them out here because I think we eat in an hour. And I was Mark, we were talking about, I'm kind of like, I'm not a minister, but I do a lot of stuff like a minister. As I wrap up, I'll say, then I'll have another 20 minutes. And so, but I have to use these too. A lot of people talk about material things, but I'll guarantee you one thing. If it wasn't material things, I wouldn't know what I wrote. But irony tells me it don't matter. But I wrote down a few guys here that I think that probably that some of the greatest players that probably in my era that I've ever amazed. Now with Mays, people talk to me about how great do you think Mays was? Well, after watching and playing in the big leagues 13 years, never saw anything could compare with him. Just wasn't nothing out there. He just had an instinct that God put in him that nobody else ever had. He just had, if you catch it, and the ball hits in the dirt and rolls 2 feet from you, most runners on first will just scoot out and see if they can go. By the time the catcher would get the ball right here, look, Mays would be standing on second. Didn't even slide. How did he get there? Don't know. He couldn't outrun everybody, but he was always there first. His just reflex got him. That's why he could catch a ball. When you're pitching in Candlestick Park back in the old days, or I don't care where you're at, when a ball was hit, you look straight at Mays if he's hit to the gap. And if he ever tapped his glove, he had it. I don't care if it looked like it was impossible or what, he was always there. And he could, he left his position where he was at as he watched the ball hit. And it just, God just put a instinct in there that nobody else ever had. He could run, hit, and throw. A lot of people could run faster. They could hit, they could throw, but he always threw to the right spot. And I was asking somebody the other day, that catch he made back in the 1954 World Series, the guy he threw the ball back to that doubled the guy off third was Alvin Dart. If you look, there's a little shortstop running out to catch the ball. And so, but anyway, Hank Aaron. Now, Hank played down here. How many have gone down and watched Hank play before he retired? There's everybody. I added quite a bit to Henry's credibility in the National League. And I pitched against Hank probably 80 to 100 times. And he only hit 3 home runs. And I can remember all 3. But he was quite a guy. He was quite a hitter. But I think that I look back at the real old timers that played, and I wrote some of them down here, but I can't read them. I think now, I don't know where Billy, you need to get Billy Odell to come up here. One of these, I think, would be good, I think. Or he's been up here, I don't know. I know he played at Liberty Mills back before he went to the big leagues when he was at Clemson. And so when I got to the big league camp in 1961, my roommate was Billy Odell, another South Carolina. And so then we played together 4 or 5 years, hunted together for 30 years. And so we still, golly, we don't hunt. I don't hunt. I sat in the pickup with him. So that's my hunting today, ride around, see if anything needs shooting beside the road that's scared to cross. Something like that, because I don't, but I think when I look at you hear a lot of rumors about Ted Williams, and you hear a lot of the guys. Now, Ted Williams probably was one of the greatest, and he says Shoeless Joe Jackson was the greatest, because he remembered a lot of things. And Ted was the type of guy that they gave him a bad rap from the sports end, because back during his first playing days of Boston, some sports writers had made some kind of bad remarks about his mom, who was a maid in the hotel. And so from then on, you say he was a sports writer, he'd turn and go, because he didn't want to talk to you. He didn't like it. And so he got a kind of a bad rap. But I'll tell you one thing, and you can go watch, you can ever watch old time hitting movies of Ted Williams and hitting, he was the most unbelievable thing in the world. But he done a lot of good, I thought, while he was still in his last days of trying to help get Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame. I remember they were doing live telecasts with him and the Tommy Lasorda and everything. And I still believe one day that Shoeless Joe will be put in the Hall of Fame when they get down to the end. I think they'll recognize from what he was and how he could hit the ball. But I think of the life that we spent. Baseball to me was a game that you could win as long as you didn't make 27 outs. I don't care how bad you were doing, you still couldn't lose unless you made 27 outs. So if you're down 10-0, don't make no difference. You haven't made 27 outs. And you're going to make, I remember playing Pittsburgh one night. Pittsburgh was leading us 11-0, 2 outs in the ninth. Mazurowski, the second baseman, made a diving catch to end the ball game with the bases loaded, beat us 11-10. And I can remember winning ball games, scoring 7, 8, 9 runs in the ninth. And you read all that because it's not over, like Yogi Berra said, not over till it's over. They can't nobody take a knee on you. They can't nobody hold a ball and go 4 corners on you. They got to throw the ball to the plate, and you got to hit it, and you got to make an out. And I got to get you out before the game is over. That's what I love about baseball. Baseball fans are have less divorces, less homicides, less drugs. They got less everything because it takes a special, unique. I think you got to understand that the ball game. Now, why does football? I was telling my wife, I said football is good because the men like the action and beating and blood and guts, and the women like them tight pants that they all wear. And that's why football, it goes so well, because you don't know who is there. It looks like a bunch of spacemen running out there. You can't tell who's in there, but you can see their pants and how tight everything and all their muscles and everything. And that's probably why, and you'd think baseball, as well as Clemson has done, as well as South Carolina has done, they'd be overflowing everywhere watching them, because Carolina's won 2, 3 years in the World Series and everything. Clemson is always up there doing a great job. But you go to a baseball game, they don't build their parks big enough because why? They know nobody will come. That many people will come out and watch baseball. And so football, and it would be good if churches could figure out how to get people to come back to church, like colleges get people to come back to watch football games. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. How they put 100,000 people over here at Clemson. Probably half of them never went to school. But they just like that beating and running and tight pants. And that's their big draw. But I think God has blessed us over the years to be able to bless me so much. Growing up as a kid on the farm, didn't have nothing. We sharecropped half of nothing. And we didn't, I remember my first, I come over to Greenville. My wife graduated nurses training in old Greenville General back in 1961. Then she come out San Francisco, where I was at. And so I remember coming over to getting a job from a guy who used to go to Parker High School. He was a meal guy all the time, but he gave me a job, $58 a week. And I was raking it in. And that was just enough to eat 2 cans of beans a week and pay the car payment and everything. Minor league pay didn't pay you much. Now, I did get a little bit of money. I got a monthly salary of $800 a month to sign. Now, when I first got to the big leagues in 1961, the income was $7,000. That was the minimum. So they paid $7,000. Had a fairly decent year. My rookie year got up to $8,500 the next year, going and blowing. Then all of a sudden we played in the World Series, got to the World Series 62. I got up to $13,000. I thought, geez, I'm going to go home and buy South Carolina. So I thought I had more money than anybody ever thought of. That was about 63. And so all of a sudden, when I left the game, I think the average income was about $33,000. That was in 1974. And I was making twice that, something like that. So I was making pretty good money. Today, the average salary, the average income averaged out to just around 2.some million. The minimum you make is like a little over 500,000 just to sit on the bench. And so, and baseball is not the only sport like that. Everything in the world, I don't care what it is, volleyball, soccer, everything in the world, tennis, what do you call it, table tennis, and everything, ping pong, everything in the world, every sport in the world. I was sitting on the plane the other day with 2 girls from Canada who had a full ride, 4-year ride at Clemson to play volleyball. They got so they didn't have to pay nothing, just come and play volleyball. And so sports today has become an unbelievable thing. I was in an FCA meeting the other day, and it was the most amazing stats that I ever heard, that coaches and athletes have more influence over the younger people today than pastors. And I couldn't believe that. I thought, why in the world of sports? And I think that's why the athletes today now, you look at them and you can't tell what they are, animal or human. With all their tattoos and the rings going in and out their body, is the most unbelievable thing in the world. They don't understand that people are watching them. People look at them, and their kids are watching them and hanging their pictures on the wall, and they don't. I remember some of them saying, "Well, I don't think I'm an influence on nobody." Yes, they are, because sports today, any kind of sports, everybody is doing something. And I think if you got a child that can chew gum and walk at the same time, you ought to be prepping them to do something. They can get a scholarship to go somewhere to do anything. I don't care what it is. And if they can play baseball, if they can catch, if they're a left-hander, man, don't take that spoon out of that left hand when they're young. Let them grow up eating that, because there's just something about throwing left-handed the ball was made for right-handers. And so when a left-hander gets a hold of it, it don't know what to do. It goes every which way. And so if you got a good left-hander, man, he can make a life. He can go everywhere and really make a life. But the key thing, I think, I look back over my life, my name. There goes my name. Probably my time. Make sure I quit before y'all start. I told Marshall, I said, well, I'll know when to quit when I see people nodding. And so the first nod I see, I'm gone. And so, but you know, I think I'm going to come back up with Ron a little bit and talk a few stories in baseball, because I think the baseball stories and the stories we spend in life. I was going to talk about Marshall and Gibson back earlier. They were 2 well-known guys, and St. Louis is an unbelievable baseball town. It's the most unbelievable baseball town I've ever seen. You go to a Cardinal game right now in St. Louis when the season starts, you won't see nothing but red. I mean red. I walk in there with a San Francisco hat as a fan and sit down. They kind of look at you, how in the world did you get in here? Because it's all red Cardinals. Well, they had programmed everybody to come to the duel of the decade. Juan Marichal and Bob Gibson. They'd never pitched against one another. It was going to be the duel of the decade. And so St. Louis Post Dispatch had all the pictures of both pitchers pitching. And they had really built up, I forget how many it held, 48 to 50,000 people showed up on that Thursday. We had a doubleheader. I was pitching the second game. Juan Marichal and Gibson was going on the first game. And so, man, they come to see Juan. And when I got to the ballpark that day, my manager, Herman Franks, he always had a habit of throwing the baseball to you while you're sitting in front of your locker. You're pitching that day. Well, I'm sitting there tying my shoes, getting ready to go out and shag balls for the hitters. And he threw a ball, hit me in the chest. And I said, what's that for? And he said, you're pitching. I said, I know, second game. He said, no, you're pitching first game against Gibson. I said, Marshall's pitching the first game. He said, no, I'm not going to pitch Marshall against Gibson. He might get beat more than nothing. I said, well, what about me? He said, and he just walked off. Now, I don't even go out for batting practice. I just wait. I stay in the clubhouse, and about 20 minutes before the ball game, I get my bullpen catcher, and we start up the steps. And I'm number 42, Marshall number 27. And so the time I got to the front step, you could hear murmuring all through the stands. That ain't Marshall. That ain't Marshall. That's not Marshall. Who's warming up? So when they got down to and pitching tonight for the Giants, number 42, Bob, boo. They booed me for 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes. They threw everything on the field. They threw all their drinks on the field, their cushions on the field. They threw everything on the field. because they'd paid all their money to come see Marshall and Gibson. So when I come up to the plate first time in the third inning, boo! They all stood again and booed. And I'm sitting out on the field. Man, they're booing for me. This is my boo. So 6th inning, nothing to nothing. I'm still got Gibson, nothing. I come to bat and they boo me again. And they still hadn't forgotten. So but I come to bat in the 8th inning. And I'm leading like 2-1, I don't know what it is, or something like that. And they give me a little, not a clap, but not a boo. All right, I had finally won them over because I had kept doing, and I didn't turn anyway. I don't care what they said, didn't bother me. The only thing it done is made me more determined. And that's why I think life should be built around. Because I don't care if you're doing the right thing and doing a good job, I don't care what people say. You stick to your principles, you stick to what you do, and you won't win over everybody, but they'll appreciate you and give you a little silent clap. And so I think that's one of the greatest examples I ever remember, how people will finally, well, he's all right. And that's why being a Christian, a lot of times people you're not going to win them over, but I'll guarantee you they'll respect you if you hold on to your principles and your belief. And so I think we live in a country right now that's kind of in a turmoil going two ways. They can't tell man from woman and all like that. We got so many odds and ends going on. We got everything that's so tipsy-turvy that we got a group of people that does not believe in absolutes. And they don't understand that there's right and wrong. When it comes down to a pastor and everything, they just don't believe there's such a thing called sin. And they've all forgot that. That's not a part of history anymore. That's not of our country anymore. It's just, what can we do for ourselves? We got an entitlement society. They've turned it around now to where all you guys and everybody, they're calling Social Security an entitlement, which is not an entitlement. You paid into it, so it's not an entitlement. You're getting a refund because of what you put in. And so it makes me so mad. I get a retirement check from baseball, and you know what they call that baseball retirement? Which we paid in for the first, I don't know how many years. Now they don't pay in, just take it out to the All-Star game. But they call our check baseball welfare check. I fired that thing back at them twice. I don't want a welfare check. I want my retirement check. Well, we calling it this now. And I said, you mean tell me I'm the only one upset? People just settle for, they get run over and they just kind of wonder, well, what should I say? And we need more people. We don't have anybody standing in the gap no more for America. I don't think we have people standing up strong like in the old days about America. I remember standing in the audience out at the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. We all went up to, I was in the inaugural parade. Wasn't supposed to be, but I got lost and I run out in the street right in front of the parade. And I run down to where our people were sitting. We had a bunch of people up there. And I was in front of the parade, and there was a policeman hollering, get out of there, get out of there. I just started waving to people. So I'll always remember being in the parade at Ronald Reagan's inauguration. But he made one statement that just changed the course of all America. And he said, the American dream is still alive. And you could hear that rumble all over those hundreds of thousands of people standing out in that at the inauguration place. And so we live in the greatest land ever. We've had some of the greatest people fight for what we stand for and still fighting for what we stand for. And I still think we can pull this thing out if we get all back together and understand that we need to go out, and if you're going to get something, you should be able to do something first. Not stand there like a robin's nest with a mouth wide open looking for a handout. And I think this whole country is built on pride and developing something. That's why we're getting so many people today from Dominican, all those South American countries, because why? Because that's their only chance to get out and do anything. We got all of the blacks in basketball because why? You look where they come from. They out playing basketball there. That's our only chance to get out of their situation they're in. And so now we're building such an entitlement society in this country that we don't have the work ethic. Because I guarantee you, it takes a lot of work to get to the big leagues in baseball. And it takes a lot of work to stay. You always got to be slapping that young kid coming up, or maybe getting a young pitcher, taking him out to dinner and slam the car door on his arm or something like that. And so, no, but you have to stay sharp. Mays was great because why? I hit him 40 fly balls a day. I don't care how good he was, I still hit him 30, 40 fly balls a day standing off out there. He'd just run and catch. And you take shortstop, second baseman, third base, everybody they don't take. Now they've cut out a lot of this and that, but you still got to practice. You still got to catch and throw and do the principles. All things. I don't care how good they are. When they went to spring training this year, they went down there and they learned how to cover first base. Same thing they're doing over here in high school. I don't care what it is. We play a game that kids can play, and they play it for fun. They can go their entire life, and the same game they say on TV is still first base, second base, third base, and home. And so I enjoyed my life. People write to me all the time, send these bubblegum cards. I get them daily to sign and send back. And number one question was, what was one of the biggest thrills in your life? I'll just answer them. Walking out on the field and pinching myself and see if it was still real. Because I could not believe a young kid from Hickory Grove, South Carolina, that God would allow him to get to the big leagues and stand there and live a lifestyle like that. And so I really, it's unbelievable how that a kid can take, you can take a kid from a rural area, as long as they have the ability to do things, they can do anything. And life is like that. And so, but I appreciate being here. One thing I want to remind you, all of us are getting to a certain point, all in life, that we're looking around and we see a lot of our friends leaving. And the only main thing we got to understand, that we can be the finest mill player, the finest big league player, the finest basketball player, the finest everything. But when the end time comes, if we haven't got the right answer, and that right answer is Jesus. If we don't know the right answer when the time comes, if we haven't got that answer right, then everything is worthless. Whole life is worthless. And so, but I appreciate being here. God bless you, and I appreciate putting up with me for a little bit.